law enforcement friends who are here tonight, who took such great care of us on Friday. You guys are the best. And so they're here to answer a few questions maybe and to give us a little insight into the event that happened on Friday. So first of all, I'm Kim Tellison, I'm superintendent, and thank you for coming in to learn more about what happened on Friday. And I'm really going to turn it over to Chief Engstrom here in a minute because I think that his account is probably more accurate than mine because I was a little stressed out, just to be really honest. So that was a stressful time for students and staff, and we acknowledge that. And so I will say that as a district that experienced a swatting episode, which is a prank or fake phone call. Well, it's not, the call is real, but it's not a real threat, so it's not a credible threat. Those swatting incidents are designed to bring large groups of law enforcement to the school district or site that call is about. And that is, if you were here on Friday, you could attest to the incredible response we had from first responders all over the county. And so just really appreciative for how fast they were to respond to our building and our school district. So without further ado, I am going to turn it over to Captain Engstrom. Did I spell your name right? What are you? Oh my God. Somebody put Captain when they send me your contact. Well, I will fix that. Chief Engstrom, sorry about that. That's terrible.
Thank you, everybody, for coming tonight. I know this event is not a good event to all be coming together for, but I know you're here to hear a little more, hopefully gain a little more insight, maybe have a few questions answered tonight. Don't know if we're going to be able to answer all of your questions. My name is Todd Engstrom. I'm the chief here in Silverton. I've been here in Silverton for about 3.5 years. I've been chief coming up on 1 year. Prior to working here in Silverton, I worked in Portland for 27 years. So I've been a cop for going on 31 years, so a long time. And I've had a lot of training and a lot of active shooter, but we refer to it now as active threat training as well. Superintendent Kim Kellison, she said she, was really, she was kind of downplaying how well she did on Friday. She was an extremely valuable resource that I had, and Deputy Superintendent Josh Brooks, who's with OSB, standing here next to me. We were right there at the front doors of the school, and she was there kind of directing things on her side of the house, meeting with the schools, and I had her on the phone, and we're talking, and we're listening to 3 different radios, and information was being shared pretty easily considering the circumstances. So let's kind of back up to how this came in. So I don't know times, well I guess I do have times. The call came in at 1:26. So this was a phone call that came into METCOM, and METCOM is our dispatch center. One thing we know is that there's 2 dispatch centers in Marion County, okay? Completely different radio systems. So that kind of poses an issue. It's on its own. It's something that we're kind of trying to work through county-wide so that we can talk to each other a little more easily. So the call comes in to METCOM, and the person on the phone is saying that they're in the school and that they're going to shoot someone. And there's a lot of information that's heard over that call. And I didn't break the call. This is an ongoing investigation. We're not going to play the call for you tonight. Maybe in the future you'll get to hear that call. But, so that call comes in. And immediately, a minute later, patrol's dispatched. And I think the phone call was in the neighborhood of 3 minutes long, but a minute into that call, they're sending police officers. They're letting the school resource officer know who's in the building. Big thing with active shooter training is officers are taught to go toward the indicators. Well, this call came in, but we didn't have indicators. No one inside this building heard anything. But the officers, school resource officer, our officer that's working patrol out on the street came straight here as fast as he could. Our detective who's sitting in his office at our police department threw on his vest grabbed the rifle, and he was out the door. And then the Mount Angel officer, there was one Mount Angel officer working, he came flying down the freeway. So the four of them were the first to be here in the school, and they immediately started searching. Okay, I think everybody here has seen the Uvalde video where cops stood in the hallway for an hour and didn't go into the classroom. That's not how we train. That's not our expectation. Our expectation is that you get here as a police officer and you go find the threat and you stop that threat. A little story, our detective, he came in the backside over here by where the loading docks are. He came in by himself. He told me, and he was completely honest, he says that was one of the scariest things I've ever done in my life. He didn't, in his mind, he's going in to find a shooter, but he's doing it by himself and he's doing what he needed to do, and he's doing what he was trained to do. And he didn't hesitate, even though he was scared. So we started searching the building, that first team, and then people are coming from far and wide. How many troopers? 15 troopers showed up that day. Marion County, I don't know, at least probably a dozen. Woodburn, Jervis, Hubbard, I'm going to forget them if I try to list them all. Everybody came running to Silverton High School. And we had over 60, I think, police officers. The parking lot was just filled with cars. Well, that's the definition of a swatting event. This is a hoax. It turned out to be a hoax. We quickly figured that out. I think if you looked at the timeline, especially if you go to our Facebook page and see those times on when the information was updated, I think we determined pretty quickly that it was a hoax. Forgot where I was going to go with that. Stand by, I'm getting cotton mouth real quick. You want to say anything while we take a drink?
I'm going to leave. No, I don't think I'll say anything just yet, because once I get started, it's pretty hard to stop.
He's a talker. So, officers, deputies, troopers are flocking to Silverton High School, and then we start searching. The information we had initially was that this was happening in a bathroom here in the high school. So we start checking bathrooms, and we're checking classrooms. As soon as that call came in, and I'm kind of going to jump a little bit here, the school went into lockdown. The school has a protocol. A siren sounds, the teachers know what to do, the students know what to do, and they locked it down. And it's something that we've trained. We train it typically twice a year, in the spring and in the fall. I participated in the last lockdown drill that we had here in the high school back in the fall. And we have one scheduled here coming up, but I think we're going to cancel that one, because yes, that one's with council. So the school did exactly what it was supposed to do, and the officers did what they were supposed to do and started searching. And then as more officers came, they split up into teams, and a lot of the teams were multi-jurisdictional teams, meaning cops from all over getting together in a search team and searching the different wings of the school. And we did a hasty first search, checking bathrooms, checking schools, and then we went back and did a slower search, room by room, closet by closet, and then at that point we released the students. Once a room was cleared, we released the students, and they were walked over by their teacher over to the middle school. So that was a game time decision that we made, because at that point when we're doing the second search, we kind of realized this is most likely a hoax, because we didn't find anything on the first one, but we wanted to be sure, so we're going to do it again. But we didn't bring buses and have the kids transported to the planned reunification spot, which is going to be the Oregon Garden. So we felt that we would just walk them over to the middle school, that we would do a head count at that point, and make sure we had everybody accounted for, and completely search the high school, and then we would let people back at that point. What are some of the things here? What's that? I get too much stuff. So I know a lot of people have questions on, why did my kids have to walk out of the classroom with their hands on their heads? And that's standard protocol. So as we escort or as we release the classrooms, and they walked over to the middle school. You can see, go to channel 2 or channel 8, you can see, you know, pictures of kids walking out of the school in a line with their hands up on top of their heads. And that's just standard protocol here in our nation. That's the way we train across the country. That way we know that nobody's holding a weapon. We can get a good look at kids as they walk by us to see if they fit the description of the suspect. You know, maybe the suspect is kind of like dropped their weapons and is now trying to blend into kids. So it's a good systemized way to move kids from point A to point B. Another big question is why did the cops have to point guns? So if you think about what the nature of this call was, this is a shooter in a school and has, at this point, based on our information, had shot someone. So we don't know if they're still up, they're still moving, they're still alive, they're searching for other victims. So when the police officers are moving through the hallways, they're moving through the hallways with their guns, you know, up in a ready position. And a lot of them had rifles. And the reason they had rifles is that those are long distance, very accurate weapons. Okay, those are much better, especially in these long hallways. The hallways in the school, some of them are over 100 yards long. And a rifle is the best weapon for a shot that's that far. So you had a lot of police officers with rifles, and as they come into those classrooms, they don't know what the threat is. Again, going back to the Uvalde scenario that I gave, that person was in a corner of the room with a rifle, kind of waiting for people to come through the door. So that's what, you know, as police officers, that's kind of the worst case scenario, and that's what you're thinking about when you enter a classroom. So your rifles are up. So I know a lot of our kids were hiding in those classrooms, and then all they see is police officers busting through the door with 4 or 5 barrels pointed at them. I talked to one teacher earlier today who was the only one in her classroom, and she was hiding up underneath her desk, and when she came out, she was looking at 5 rifles. It's pretty traumatic. I know that's traumatic. So, and I know, you know, that's probably going to take a long time for that image to leave her head. And, you know, I feel for her. She's a good person, good friend of mine. Something about the information as it was coming in. In these situations, information is being relayed from person to person. You know, the caller calls in, the dispatcher hands it off. You know, everybody knows the telephone game. Things get distorted. You know, at some point, someone thought it was a hostage situation. At one point, they thought it was a kidnapping. At one point, they thought it was a shooting. So there was all these mixed signals on what had actually taken place. And you have a bunch of officers, you know, coming in and trying to decipher this information, and they're also talking to kids and trying to glean information as fast as they can as they talk to people coming in and out. Radios are an issue. Radios are an issue here in the county when we have 2 different county systems. It's like I can't talk to OSP. I have to walk up to Josh and talk to him physically. I can't talk to him on my radio. So those are some things that we need to keep in mind and that we need to work on here in the future. And there is a county radio project that we've been working on for quite a while. So hopefully we can make some headway on getting a radio system where we can all talk to each other. I talked about all the police agencies that showed up. We also had our fire department and fire district. They were there in force. I don't know how many bodies they had, at least 20, I would think, and a bunch of rigs, and they were ready. They had their gear spread out on the grass. They were ready to receive bodies, hurt people. And I heard that the hospital was put on notice. Life Flight was put on notice. Dr. Jess Miller right here had spoken up and said he's trained in trauma and has gear, and he was willing to show up to the high school to help start, you know, packing wounds and triaging people. So the community came together so incredibly well during this incident. Active shooter training happens in the schools, and then we as police officers train it as well, but those typically happen separately. In this incident, even though it was a hoax, it was basically like a dress rehearsal that we would have never had otherwise. So we plan to put as positive of a spin on this as we can and to learn what we can do better next time, but I think we did an exceptional job this go around. So, Josh, do you have anything to add? Sure.
Thank you, Chief. I'm not a big microphone person, so you'll pardon me if I don't know what to do with my hands. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Josh Brooks, and I could very well be sitting in this auditorium with you today. I'm a parent of 2 students at Silverton High School. And much like you, I got the text messages that were unsettling and alarming and caused all sorts of fear and uncertainty for a period of time as I responded to this call. So I'll begin by saying I understand where you're at. You know how you felt getting that call or those texts? I know the feeling of relief that you got when you learned it wasn't real, or at least it wasn't your child. And I know the anger you felt when you realized the hurt that had just been done to our community. So I'm with you. I understand that. I will tell you, by the way, I'm the Deputy Superintendent of the State Police. It's not typically the kind of call I would go to, so I'm pretty rusty with a lot of this. Pretty good budgets and emails now, but I brought along Captain Chris Zoner. I'm going to have him start this way and tell a little bit about kind of our approach to this and how OSB integrates into these things. A couple of things I want to point out. First, I mentioned this to Kim. In fact, I texted her because I happen to have her number. I just told her how much I appreciated her response to this. Most of my career has been in major crimes, criminal shootings, murders, really terrible things. And I've been with a lot of people who are in her position, expected to make difficult decisions in a short amount of time, answer tough questions, move on the fly. And the school district, and with Kim's leadership, and I'm not meaning to do anything funny here besides say thank you. No, she did a great job. I told her so. Silverton and its attentiveness to this problem, also great partnerships with them. Chief, your folks were fantastic. Officer Al, is it a senior officer? I don't want to be disrespectful again. Senior officer Al, who my kids know and love, was everywhere. She was like the monster back on the field going places. So before I turn it over to Chris, I would like you to just contemplate for a minute kind of where you sit and where your kids sit. As a community that's been a victim of this crime, there's work to be done. As police officers responding to these kinds of things, there's work for us to be done. I don't know if the chief mentioned it, I just missed it, but there's a debrief that is planned but not necessarily set yet for the agencies that are involved. It takes time to get it back together and talk through it. So we're going to learn and grow from this. We're going to talk about things and how we did, what we can do better, because that's how police work. But as a community and as a member of this community, my ask to you is that you will think through what things you can do to make it safer next time. Prepare your kids. Build a mindset that allows you to say, okay, we're not going to let this happen here, but we're going to be smart about it. And that's all kinds of things. I don't know if you're aware, Oregon has Safe Oregon and Safe Schools TipLine, where kids that have information about potential bad actors can call that information in to the school safety TipLine, share it gets sent to the right place, whether it's to the police department, or the school district, or anywhere in between. So that the kids that might be struggling or contemplating something real can get addressed and intervention can occur as early as possible. So those are the kinds of things I'd like to steer you towards. But just know, I understand, and I'll be here if you've got any questions, because if you don't want to put your hand up like me and ask it in this setting, come find me and be happy to chat with you. So, Captain Zoner, would you mind coming? That's Chris Zoner, he's our Northwest Region Captain. I've asked him just to talk a little bit about our approach and how this kind of works together.
Thank you. Afternoon, everyone. I would like to echo what Deputy Superintendent Brooks and Chief Kingston said. I'm a parent. I have 2 boys. One's 20, just out of high school, working the real world. He's learning. And then I have an 18-year-old that's at West Salem High School. He's a senior, looking forward to getting out of high school. But so it's not lost on me, the situation, the gravity of the situation that the children were in. We were in those hallways. I looked kids in the face. Some kids were stoic, like a lot of the police officers there. Some kids were bawling. Some kids just had a look of sheer panic on their face and were just white as a ghost. So it's not lost on me, the situation, and I'm sad that we're here under these circumstances, but I think it's great that as a community and as law enforcement that we're here to talk about what was good, what was bad, what we can do better. A little bit of context, I spent 12 years at the Salem Police Department, a lot of training there. I spent 10 years on the SWAT team, a lot of training in active threat training, active threat, active shooter training, we call it active threat now for the most part. Been with OSP about 8 years, and I've lived in Salem since 2003. So we are community members. And I will tell you, Silverton PD is an excellent organization. The former chief, Chief Engelmeyer, very good man, very good chief of police. Chief Engstrom, had the pleasure of knowing him for about 3 years now since he's been here. In meetings, law enforcement meetings, excellent organization. I have all the confidence in the world in Silverton PD. I think they did an excellent job. Marion County showed up. It was a total team effort by law enforcement. And so to kind of go back on some of the challenges that we face, I'd like to correct what Chief Engstrom said, we have METCOM, we have WVCC in Salem that dispatches for other agencies, and then we have the Northern Communications Center, which is OSP's own dispatch center. So we have 3 dispatch centers, and the way that we heard that we got the call was I had a trooper that was working out kind of in East County that heard it on the scanner. So then he gets on our radio channel and asks our dispatch, hey, I just heard this, what did you hear? And then they call over and start getting phone calls. So we play that phone game, right? And I heard it in my office and just undocked the computer because like the deputy, I am an administrator for the most part now. It kills me every day, but that's how we responded. And I will tell you, every law enforcement official in the valley knows when you get these calls that you're dropping everything and you're going. And that's why you got 60 plus police officers, including every trooper within about a 50-mile radius, it seems like. So, but these situations are really perfect. Okay, there's things that we can do better. That's why we debrief. We won't get into a lot of tactics right now. We will do that in the debrief with our law enforcement partners. But just know that when you had all those police officers show up, that there was Woodburn, there was Jervis, there was Mount Angel, there was Silverton, there was County, there was OSP. We were all teamed up together. I was calling out to people I didn't know, just calling them, hey, Woodburn, because I could see his vest on the back. It said Woodburn PD, so that's how I'm communicating. We have different radio channels. So we're trying to get as much information as we can, but like Chief Engstrom said, it's not like, everybody remembers Columbine. Most of us remember Columbine if you're a parent, right? And that was the one that really kicked off this training for law enforcement nationwide, is because police officers waited for too long and children died. And in Uvalde, officers waited and children died, right? And I will tell you right now, as someone that has trained other police officers, I've told my friends when they've asked me, and they said, I have no idea what they were doing. I don't know how that was okay. I don't know what was going through their mind. I don't know why somebody didn't speak up and go. But that happened here, where cops showed up, and then they just went, right? One detective shows up on the back of the building, and he goes, right? We don't know he's there. I was telling the superintendent, and I actually talked to her in the hallway there and asked her, can you turn off the alarm? Because the alarm was just blaring the whole time. And that's something that we don't train with. Because while we may have a school to train in, we don't have students, we don't have faculty. We normally have the keys that are already given to us at the start of the training. We don't have the alarm going off. I couldn't hear a dang thing on the radio. I had to step outside the front and actually talk to my dispatcher on the radio. So all that is stuff that, as we debrief and as we talk to our partners and talk to the community, is stuff that this is invaluable for us just as training. And that's what we get paid to do. We get paid to stop the threat. And I will tell you, I don't say it to be glamorous or anything like that, but we will go in and we will find the threat and we will stop. And if that means that we pay the ultimate sacrifice, then that's what happens. And so every cop that was here that day thought the same thing. And it's what we do. And I'm not saying we're perfect. There's many things, trust me, there are many things that we should do better. But when you're given that hand with the lack of information, or changing information because we're getting information from multiple sides, I think everything played out probably as well as it could have. And so, I'll pass over to Chief Eastern. Questions?
Okay, I'm going to turn it over to Principal KJ, and she's going to talk about some of our student experience and what they shared today.
Thank you. Well, that was a lot to hear. So I want everybody to take a big deep breath, because I know my shoulders are like in my ears right now. So if everybody takes a moment just to breathe, and we're going to kind of turn to some of the more positive things that happened today at the school. If you know me, you know I'm probably going to cry. Okay, so I just want to thank our parents. Oh, shoot. Okay, now I can't see. I want to thank you guys. It was hard, but you guys did awesome, and there was a lot of frustrations. I get it, but for the most part, everybody was patient and calm and helped us through that. So many parents asked if they could help. A few parents showed up, and they are volunteers that work in our building a lot, and so we put them to work. But we really appreciate our parents' support. And then I just wanted to share a bit, because I have my own teenagers, about how well your kids did. Because as parents, that's good for us to hear. So your kids were cooperative, they were respectful, they were helpful. So many, we had a lot of substitutes in our building. A spring, look at Patrick, this is part of his duties. Thank you. Kim and I are a great team. We cry together a lot. So we had a lot of substitutes in our building. It's May. Was it May? Sorry, I was pretending. It's April. It was a Friday. We had track meets and field trips and events going on. I think we had 14 subs. Our subs get training, but they're not the same trainings that we do with our kids. They don't sit in the classrooms with their students and go through a lockdown drill. And so many of our subs that we reached out to were thankful for the kids in their class that helped them through it. So the students helped the subs with the lockdown drill and all the things. And I just think that's a testament to our kids. Also the maturity. They were very much their best selves. You know, they were in a traumatic experience, and our kids they did what they were supposed to. They followed directions. Both of the police, of staff, and just did what they needed to in a really hard situation. So your kids did great. We do a lot of practicing twice a year of the lockdown. We do the shelter in place, we do fire drills, we evacuate, but we don't do what we did on Friday. We didn't have the police in the building, they help us with our drills, but they don't have guns. We don't redo the reunification. That was a bit of a zoo. I think you all know if you were there. It was a good zoo, and it turned out fine, and we got the kids reconnected with their families in less than 2 hours. So 1,300 kids in less than 2 hours was amazing, but it wasn't like super streamlined. We know that. We're working on how we can do a much better job with that, but that is something that was a challenge, so we appreciate your patience with that. What else? Definitely working on improving our practices. What happened on Friday is an educator's worst nightmare. It's a parent's worst nightmare. I am reflecting through the lens of both, as you've heard from all of them. I think all of us who were revising and looking at how we can make things better and do that, we're all doing it both as parents and educators. So my kids were in the middle school texting and calling me, "Are you okay?" I was like, oh boy, this is not what I signed up for. But it is what I signed up for, and I think that's part of our duties. That's why we're here, to keep our kids safe, our own kids and your kids. And I think that was another piece where our staff really brings, these are our kids. Every one of our staff kids were walking in, they had lost their teacher somewhere, other staff were grabbing them and taking them to where they needed to go. So we are very fortunate at Silverton High School. We have great kids, great staff, great families, and I'm just thankful for that. Today we had a 2-hour delay, as everybody knows, and it was really a great experience, I think, for our staff to get to work closely with the team from the safety team from the ESD. A few of them are here, if you guys want to raise your hands. In the audience, they are a safety team from ESD that came and worked with us all day. So they worked with our staff this morning, they worked in the library, and they supported our students who needed extra attention and supports, and they supported our staff as well throughout the day, and the principal, they supported her a lot, and working with Kim as well, so we really appreciated their support. During AG today, the students had their AG first period, their advisory group, and they did a lot of time reflecting and spent some time writing down what they need. And so I'm going to take a second here and share a few of these, and I really appreciate some of the kids who are a little lighthearted, and I think they need that. So, and then some of the real things that they need right now to help support and move on. One student, we had students who need chocolate, and this was a good idea. They need disaster buddies, just to make sure no one gets lost. And I thought that was a really good kind of thought from the student. A lot of kids are sharing they just want time for homework. They need extra time for the stuff that was due now, or in the coming weeks, just time to work on homework and not feel stressed about that. This one, I think this kid, he's kind of being funny a little bit, but I need an extension on my schoolwork and a few free credits. I would like that. This is just some good feedback, wanting to know that it's actually a lockdown versus a drill, and I'm not sure, at what point in that we need to make sure we're letting kids know. We had student, thank you for your dedication to our protection. The call to action was met. Today, walking into school, I was a little anxious, but I'm feeling better and ready to move on. Let's see. I'm okay. I'm worried about my friends who are still really scared, and I am so thankful that my teacher was so calm when we were hiding. That made me feel safe. So I think another testament to what our staff does to support our students. We're going to continue. We did have quite a few students out today, so those students we're going to continue reaching out and offering supports for kids who need that. So if you're here and you have high schoolers, or you are a high schooler, and you have friends or yourself needing extra support, just because today is done and the people aren't in the library helping you, we're still wanting to reach out and connect with kids. So don't suffer in silence. Let us know if you need anything. And I think that is all for me. I want to introduce Sherry Lovery. Sherry is with the Crisis Management Institute. She has been a complete angel for me today. We got connected through a couple of different avenues, kind of randomly, and with Kim. And we spent a lot of time on the phone this weekend talking about what we need to do to move forward with our staff and our students and our families. And she is an expert in crisis management. Her resume is amazing. And she's been truly, truly helpful to us. And so I'm going to give her the mic, and she's going to talk a little bit about some of more the mental health type things that she can share with you to help support yourself and your students. So, Sherry.
So, I'm probably the only one that's going to speak to you that isn't part of your staff, your school staff, or your first responders. And my history is that I've done this in other places, but never where I lived. And what I got to say to you is, don't you have a fabulous, wonderful group of people that are taking care of your kids all day and taking care of the community every day? I am so impressed. And I'm so glad that I moved to Silverton. In the aftermath of these events, we often get kids saying right away, is it safe? And what you know is in this event, no one died. This was a threat. So one thing we know is that the kids still have a sense of, does it feel safe to go into school? And sometimes the kids are ready to come back, but it's their parents that aren't quite ready to let them come back. And one of the things that we think about at a time like this, my response to that is they've never been safer. Don't you think that every single person outside and inside all of your schools right now are paying more attention than they've ever paid before? But I think what happens is that because of the fight or flight response, anytime you're in a building that has something that frightening happen, our bodies mobilize all of this biochemistry to help us run fast, to help us fight off the threat. And one of the things I think is hard for us to understand is that when we learn that there is no threat, that biochemistry that's all charged up inside of us doesn't just fade away. It's still there. And what it does, if you think about the mama bear, the mama bear might not take after you, but if she's got cubs, then she probably will. It's that part of us that needs to take care of ourselves. It doesn't just fade away when the threat is over. So the good news is that there are some things we can do to help it calm down. But until we do that, our bodies still have all of that adrenaline and all of the corticoids, all the other stuff that's going on. And it tends to make us irritable, on edge, and easily provoked. So some of you may have noticed that with your students over the weekend, or students that are here, you may have noticed that with your parents, that they're a little on edge, because it takes a while for that adrenaline to quiet down. In fact, sometimes a very long time. But what we know makes a difference is being able to put words to what happened. So a very ordinary question that parents often ask their kids is, oh my God, tell me what happened. That's the greatest thing you can do, is let your kids put words to what happened. The same is true for you. Talk with another adult about how it was to get the call, how it was to wait until you knew that everyone was safe. And talking through that is the beginning of mastery. Once we know what we faced, we can begin to now move, plan on how we're going to get better. So one part of that is just having the opportunity to talk with someone. Often, and I want to address the kids in the group, and I'm so glad to see there's some kids here, sometimes moms and dads and teachers don't know what questions to ask, but just because they don't ask doesn't mean they don't care. They just don't know how to start the conversation. One safe way to do that is for you guys to talk about how you think your friends and peers are doing. Moms and dads, a great way to get your kids talking is not to say, how are you feeling? Because what are they going to say? Well, I'm okay. That's what we tend to do. But if we talk about how do you think kids at school are doing, then we're talking about something that's more general, it's a lot safer to approach it that way. So that's one thing, is just keeping it a little more general is sometimes helpful. What could I do that would make a difference for you? It's a great question for parents to ask. It's one we're asking the teachers to ask kids at school. What would help you feel safer right now? What's one thing I could do that would make a difference? So just those conversations are helpful. Screen time is not helpful. So I really encourage you, especially, not to be looking at scary pictures and rehashing it. Now, in this case, nobody died. It was wonderful that the outcome was entirely positive. But that screen time and those images that we watch, reinforcing that's not helpful. So whether it's this event or the next, wildfires, if anything that hits the news that impacts us, turn the news off, listen to it, read it, but don't watch it. And instead, get into family time, go for a walk, play board games, have time together, and turn off the television. So those are a couple of things. The other thing is that, as was mentioned, this school is part of a larger network. And so the people that mobilize to support schools at times like this have had experience, lots and lots of experience at doing this. So I know they have some handouts in the back for you to take home, but also the school has resources that they can connect you with. It isn't all just about counseling. It's not, do you need counseling? A part of it is just how we come together as a community. Because, you know, the school can't fix this on its own. You as parents can't. You as first responders can't. But with all of you together in this room, this is what makes it better. So this is a conversation that needs to go on in your community. How do we be here for one another? How do we support one another at times like this? And one really wonderful thing is that your school is aware of other resources that are here in the community for you. So it's just been an incredible pleasure for me. It's a terrible word to use for this, but it's so rewarding to watch something go so well. And I gotta tell you, I don't have to say that. I don't say that every time. But this time, it's like you always learn. If you don't learn something, you aren't watching. But I've done this for 45 years, and I still learn. In this particular event, there are tweaks and little things that people need to look at, but I have never been in a one that I think I could say has gone so incredibly smoothly, especially with having to change how the kids were going to evacuate midstream. And it was like nobody missed a beat. So I have nothing but just the highest of praise and thoughts for how your community responded. And I love that I can say that from the outside, because I'm not employed by your school, nor am I employed by your first responders. So you're in good hands.
Thanks, Sherry, that was awesome. And I apologize for butchering all your titles. Josh, Chief Engstrom, sorry about that. I will fix those if I ever have to present again. I want to just go over a couple of things that I want to tell you that are in play in the district right now, because I think they're important as we move forward when we're talking about security and different things. So, first of all, ODE did a complete security and site assessment on every single building in the district. And they just completed those in like late February. And so we're evaluating that data, and then we are putting a security assessment team together that will start meeting in May. And so this is a team that will start looking at every element in those reports and trying to rectify or improve where we can. So if you're interested in serving on that team as a parent, please let me know. I will be reaching out to some of my first responders to serve on that team. And I actually attend the emergency management team meetings too here locally, which there's a lot of information that is given there. ODE has been really instrumental today, so they did what's called a hot wash with us. So they went through the whole event. It took 2 hours. And we talked about every facet of everything that happened in the building that day. And I think what's really great is that they were very supportive, and they're here with us for the ride. So they will help guide us through any improvements we make or any changes we make that only increase student safety. So we want our students, their safety is our first priority. And we did write a grant for a panic alert system that will be implemented in the district. That's new state law that's required by, I think it's June 30th of 2025. So we are going to implement the grant's $12,000, so what we have to implement has to stay within that amount because of our budget constraints. But we have a good product that we can implement that will increase some panic alert systems for the district. So that's a great improvement that we're going to make. So if you're interested in serving in that team, you can reach out to my secretary, Debbie Valoff, and we would be happy to have a couple parents on that team. Any questions about that? One more thing before I turn it over. I will say that when I was sitting on the floor in the high school office, I was in lockdown in the building, I texted all the elementary, I have an admin team on my phone so that I can give them immediate information, and I said, please secure all elementary buildings in town and the middle school. So we did do a secure the perimeter, which means that Mark Twain, Melissa secured there. It means they lock all the doors, business as usual, you keep teaching, but you don't go in and out and you don't let other people in. It's just a security, it was a precautionary measure, and it's normal when you have any type of lockdown event in another building that's nearby. So we did that, that was a quick decision that we made, and that is kind of part of the standard response protocol when you have a building that has a major problem in it or some type of threat. Any questions about that? Yes.
My class was on a field trip to the bowling alley down the way. And like when this all happened. So you said that like not to let, that it wouldn't let anybody in or out. My question is why, and a lot of the other kids' questions were, why were we going back to school if everything's on lockdown? Why not just lock up where we are?
You mean like the field trip to stay where you're at, stay put? Yeah, I'd have to investigate that. I don't know what happened with that particular bus. My high school admin might know. We did have some kids that stayed on the bus, and we were communicating with different groups, and so we will get a better answer for you. Does the high school admin want to? Is it? Yes.
Hi, Cassidy. Hi. Cassidy's a student at Central Howell, which is my school. We were not in lockdown or secured, so because of that, I asked that class to come back to the school.
Okay, that's because your building wasn't technically
Correct,
locked
and
down.
because they were in town and everything was going on, we just had them all come back to school.
Right, and so I was communicating with your principal the whole time. Thank you for, you look so mature, I thought you were a high school kid. Maybe next year. Okay, well, you're as tall as your mom, so there's that. Yeah, so we are going to head into the question and answer session. So I think Therese has a microphone. Therese? Yeah, so does anybody have any questions for me or law enforcement or KJ? We're happy to answer those. And you might tell me who it's for, and I'll give that person the mic.
Yes, my question is in regards to, you were speaking about having a grant or applying for a grant to have an emergency response button. Wouldn't it be better use of funds to have a metal detector so that things aren't coming into the building that we would then have to respond to with a button?
So the grant is specific to a panic alert system, which was a state law that was passed. So we're supposed to put that in. I do think, and we've got a guy in a blue shirt down here in front, Teresa. I do think that there have been some metal detectors placed in some of Salem Kaiser's large schools. And so, I mean, that is something we can talk about as a community, but I would never unilaterally make that decision without checking with you folks first. So that would be something that security and assessment team would talk about. Does that make sense? Yeah, that is happening, and the product that Salem Kaiser's using, I talked to their superintendent, is called Evolve, is the product. So, if you want to look it up.
Okay. And about 2 weeks before this incident, some colleagues and I volunteered to do a stop and bleed class in the high school. And it occurred to me during this incident that there's a limitation to that training without the corresponding equipment. So a good analogy would be like, you know CPR, but you don't have PED, there's a limit to what you can do. So my request would be for either the district or the county or EMAC to consider getting American College of Surgeons stop and bleed kits in each class, or sorry, in each school.
Yeah, if you would send me the one that's best, that'd be great. So we talked about that today with ODE a little bit about having like a grab and go kit for teachers, so that it has like a vest and a whistle and some of the things, snacks. We had a staff member that had a diabetic issue. If we'd had some juice or a snack that that long, we wouldn't have had to call EMTs for that person. So I think that having better supplies in the classroom and having that grab and go kit, I think that's really smart. And I actually think, to take it one step further, if you really want to be prepared to teach your students to do that too, right? Like, kids should know how to do that if they come upon an accident. How do we prepare our students for real life to help other folks? I mean, that's the true best use of the school district, is to prepare kids for real life when they get out in the world. And so, God forbid they ever have to do that, but it's good information to have. It's like they all should have CPR as well. So, yes, that is a great point, and we've already talked about that.
Hello, I'm new to the community. 2 years, I think. So, the most frightening thing for me through the incident was the last thing I had run through my mind was Wally, and we have a foreign exchange student here. It's like, this is not something she's been going through for years. And my wife was the one in the parking lot, and she couldn't get any information about what was happening. And I was trying to figure out how I was going to get somebody to watch my daughter and get into the school, because I didn't know what your team's response was and what your perspective was. And the terror for me is seeing a blockade of police keeping me from getting somebody. And I feel much better having heard you speak, and I really appreciate that you guys have been putting yourselves there and that's your mission. It's very reassuring for me to hear. I would say what would be good is my wife had to run around the whole place trying to figure out what's going on, what's going on, what's going on. I understand you guys have a nightmare of trying to figure that out yourselves, organize your own response, but there's something to consider, maybe find a way to get information to the parents who are waiting,
So,
or assigning the system.
are you talking about you were at the high school or you were at the middle school?
I was at the middle. I was at the middle school.
Okay.
And there was just no information, and there was like 20 different stories, of course. And it would have been helpful had there been like a check-in spot for parents.
Yes.
So that you could show up and be like, this is what we know, and get it from the source.
Yeah. So can I talk about that for a second? So when districts identify reunification sites, we often don't rely on other buildings in our district because it's confusing. But in this particular case, the police force, the law enforcement group, they asked me to use the middle school, and because they know way more about it than I do, I followed their lead, right? So I'm your superintendent, when law enforcement is processing that type of site, they said, can we move to the middle school? We need to move all the kids to the middle school. I said, okay, and then I thought, oh my gosh, what time is that? Look at my watch. I'm like, oh, it's almost 3 o'clock. Like it wasn't, I knew we were going to have confusion there, and that's not where we're designed. That's not where our plan is. So we have an agreement with Oregon Garden, and we used to have an agreement. I don't know if we still have it in place with Fest Hall in Mount Angel as a reunification site. So, like, say there was some type of flood or something, and the building was destroyed, and we had to get out. Like, we're not going to go to the middle school because it's probably compromised too because it's so close here. So we have we have all kinds of locations that we could choose from, to take students to. But in this particular case, the middle school was chosen. And so that made it a little bit harder for us because we had all the middle school kids there, and part of our system that we've set up, we just didn't have that same system in place in that building, so we had to figure out the system on the fly. And then what was really complicated was that people are processing a lot of emotions, and so instead of me being able to be out and help you understand better what the situation was, I was busy dealing with parents that were upset. And so, I think having one dedicated person outside to say this is what's happening, maybe pass around a sheet, print a sheet real quick and say this is what we know, here's what's going to happen, that might have been, and that would have been an improvement.
Oh yeah, I was, the other thing is that in the beginning at the middle school, it was Mr. Davison and his staff and myself that were helping. And so we had a great response. The middle school, Mr. Davison, Mr. Craig, the office staff in the middle school came, and they were receiving and helping and getting us rosters and set up and all that kind of thing. But they knew like less than, it was just like the emergent response. I think the one thing that there's a lot we took away, but when you're talking about the parents too, is that parents were kind of like, we need to designate a place and even a line, because then when we have the line feels sort of like Black Friday sale, but you have that when we are able to start releasing students, it was like intense. And so if we have kind of a line, then it sort of helps guide parents up, and so that's kind of part of what we're doing to make it to do better.
Yeah, we have lots of notes on that. Yeah.
And I'm up here with number 1, and I see number 2 and number 3.
Yeah. Okay.
Hi, my name is Lorena Porras, and I'd like to thank the officers that were there. And I also wanted to say that one of them mentioned about the sirens being loud and they couldn't communicate. I have a daughter that's nonverbal with autism, Down syndrome, and I think they need to work on that part because my daughter can't text me. She can't tell me there's this happening at the school. I didn't get a text or anything. I had to text the teacher and find out where my daughter was at. I didn't even know where she was at. I didn't get to see my daughter until I think 3:30. And like I said, she's nonverbal, autistic, and now she doesn't want to come back to school. And it's hard. It's hard because she likes school, you know, and she's often sick and can't be in school. And now this, because of the noise, it's just scary for her. And so it took about a whole weekend for us to get her to relax and calm down. And I'm just thinking that there needs to be more advocacy for kids with disabilities, especially in the classrooms, like maybe have some type of box that they know that if this happens, they can get headphones for them, they can get devices, and every classroom should have it in case this happens. Also, communication. You know, if the assistant has my child, have them communicate. Let them hear my daughter's voice. Send me a picture of my daughter saying she's okay, because I have no clue. And my daughter can't tell me, Mom, I was scared, I'm this. I don't get that. I get just verbal, like, cues of my daughter, and I know that she was scared. And I know I'm not the only mom with a child with disability in the school that had to deal with this the whole weekend. And she's not coming to school tomorrow because it's the same thing. She's scared. And so I just need support in that from the school, communication. I mean, there has to be something where they can send me a text.
Yeah, and did you get the parents' core messages?
No.
Okay, so when you, tomorrow morning when school's going, will you call the front office and have them walk you through your settings? Because some people's settings weren't turned on correctly for them to get messages. And then because our communications from the district office with several people sending things out, and a couple of them did not go out as an urgent alert, and we have noted that, and we've written a whole flow chart about how that should be. If we ever have this issue again. And then the other thing is that when I came to the building, I got here at 1:39, probably 1:40, somewhere in there. So I was one of the first people I was here before the roads were blocked off. And I too noticed a sped student outside who I know personally, and she was very upset. And so I really took that to heart, and I thought we got to do better with that because that was really disrupting to her. So when we met with ODE today, we talked about, we have this really loud alarm that goes off when we're in lockdown. It's really loud, right? And it was really disruptive to law enforcement, and that's not best practice anymore. So we have talked about turning that off after 2 minutes, and then we will communicate with the alarm company to see if if there's something we can do different to that system. That system is as old as the building. So, it was put in a long time ago when those things were a little bit different, but we will work on that. And if you want to send me an email, with any other thoughts about how we serve our most vulnerable kids, I'd love to talk to you more.
Hello, my name's Derek. I'm one of the subs that were here on Friday over at the middle school. And I gotta say, this is like first I gotta say, the police were awesome. The sirens went blowing by the middle school, and then we got I call it a 1MC because I was in the military for 20 years, but we got teachers check your email. Guess what? Subs don't have access to email. So I didn't know what was going on. But having the training that I've had through the military, doing a lot of active shooter drills and mass casualty drills. I need to lock the doors, turn off the lights, just training kicked in. So one thing I'm trying to do is advocate for a DD-214, not necessarily, for a restricted teacher's license, not necessarily having to have a bachelor's degree, but having a DD-214. Because you have a lot of people with experience in emergency situations that can handle this with little information or knowledge of what's going on. So I just wanted to say that. Second, I know one parent up there was talking about communication with the parents. I had kids panicking. Kids knew what was going on before I even did. I didn't know what was going on. Kids were panicking, checking their phones. Parents were calling their kids. Phones were vibrating all left and right. So I said, pull out your phones, text your parents. I'm in this classroom. I'm safe. The classroom's secure. Okay, so to her point with the photograph or texting, I think that we should just have like a printout where the kids can take a picture of it and send it to their parents, saying secure, status, secure, unsecure. Okay, it's secured, safe. Here's the number if you need a contact. Because another thing that happened was the school lines were jammed up. I couldn't get through as a substitute teacher there trying to figure out what's going on. And I know one kid's like, I'm trying to call the school, but I can't get through, right? So I think there should be different forms of ways to get through to where you're talking to a person, not just relying on text. Whether that be the teacher. I've been happy to take the phone and talk to the parents, but I didn't know if that's protocol or not. But there's that. A lot of this reminds me of being on the flight deck of a carrier. People at night, they would be disgruntled. They'd throw a chem light, and this would be our man overboard indicator, overboard, and we'd have to muster the whole ship in 8 minutes. That's 5,000 people that we'd have to muster in 8 minutes or account for. And I think the schools did a phenomenal job, but I have some ideas that maybe could help with streamlining the process, I guess. One being like the middle school, they had a passing period in the middle of it. I think they should have just stayed put, like I think somebody else said, with the buses. But I think they should have just stayed put instead of worrying about how they're going to get to their next class. Anyway, yeah, I just wanted to say you guys did awesome over there. Kids knew what was going on before I knew because they had text. And I just think I have some ideas to help with communication, getting the word out, calming parents down so they're not jamming up school lines and all that stuff. Anyway, yeah, that's all I have. Thanks.
Yeah, there would have been nobody at the high school to answer the phone. So when I entered the building at 1:39, there was no one in that area. They were all in lockdown. So if you really, I mean, we can put that communication out. There won't be any building communication, so you have to call the district office.
Okay.
In that case.
First of all, I want to thank everybody who responded. I might get a little teary too because it's terrifying for me. Looking around the auditorium, I feel like I might not be alone in the parent group that didn't have lockdown drills when I was going through school. So this is new, right? I didn't have lockdown drills, so I'm not educated personally as what happens in there. And I feel like some of my fears as a parent may be alleviated if I had more information on what my student does. And I can only ask my kid from a kid perspective, right? But I would assume that the school has a general policy and procedure on what that looks like.
Yeah,
and maybe that the police have a general response of what we do. So if the parents could have some knowledge about how you guys are taking care of our kids in that department, right? Or put out a policy and procedure so that I know what's happening, that might alleviate my fears to a degree that I don't need to call my kid or call the school, and I can just have some faith and trust that you guys are going to take care of it, because it's terrifying, right? We don't know that.
Yeah.
But if I know what to expect, that helps calm my fears, and I don't feel like that's disseminated well enough.
Yeah, probably not.
And that might be an area that we can improve on, and I don't know how to do that. I don't know if it's just send it home.
I have some ideas. I mean, I think if you, like, we have an open house every fall in every building. And so, like, you know, if we had a threat assessment, not threat assessment, but a threat training, and like what our standard response protocol is, we use the I Love You Guys Foundation for SRP, and that's probably the most popular and most effective response protocol in the nation. But sending you guys that information, giving a presentation up here at open house, just inviting everybody in, like maybe they have stations, maybe they go to the transcript station, maybe they come to the, here's what happens if we have, God forbid we ever have this happen again. But, just so you know, for the lockdown procedure too. So, the lockdown drill is, if we had another one of those this year, it would be very traumatic for kids, so we already talked about it today. So, we're supposed to have 2 drills a year, but we're gonna do an alternate drill that doesn't include that alarm and some of those things that were traumatic for kids. We have the ability to turn the alarm off now, so we know that 2 minutes in we can turn it off. So that's good, which would really help kids that are, and it also helps you feel better as someone who's in a lockdown because you can hear what's not happening. Like if we had an actual emergency inside our building, it would be chaotic and noisy. It wouldn't be quiet. And once we turned the alarm off, you could tell that it was, that there was not something like that happening in here. So I think that's a great idea to train you like we train the kids, right?
And let us know, just let us know more, right? Give us a policy and procedure so I know what to expect.
Yeah, it's super easy. It's like 2 clicks that I can send it to you. Yeah.
And at the high school, after our fall lockdown drill, we did send a parent square saying, here's what your kids did today. If this was real, you would not be reporting on site to the high school, and that we would be doing that communication through parent square. And we emphasized again the importance of making sure that you keep your contact information up to date in parent square. And then we also put the link to the I Love You Guys so that people can see directly our protocols. And so we do send that out after each of those drills.
Yeah, the website for our standard response protocol is iloveyoguys.org. And it was sent out on one of my parent squares I sent out over the weekend. It was on Saturday. It had a link to it, my recap. So if you go back in your parent square, that recap had it.
Yeah, I just mostly wanted to make a comment. I wanted to thank law enforcement for their response. I see we have city leadership here, and I just want to encourage the city to keep investing and prioritizing in these trainings. It seems like things went really well, as much as they could have gone. So thank you so much. I also just want to thank the school staff because him that you ran into the building.
Oh, that was, my law enforcement friends say I shouldn't have done that.
I know.
I got in trouble. Todd's like, Kim, and I'm like, I'm sorry, KJ was stuck over at the middle school, she didn't get it. And so I snuck in. I actually watched you guys in the upper veranda. I could see a police officer in the upper veranda with a rifle. And I was like, oh, and then I just real quick ran to the office door and locked myself in. But it was not, I did not fall. Sorry. But KJ wasn't here and I knew they would need things. Sorry.
Okay, well,
not
on the risk, but thank you very much. And I just know, I talked to a lot of teachers and I had 2 kids in the building that day and they talked about how calm and instructive their teachers were. They were co-regulating the kiddos. I absolutely believe that many of you would put your bodies and your lives on the line to protect your students. And I just can't thank you enough for that. So thank you. No complaints at all. Thank you. And then my just other question is, for the investigation, when you do find out more details about the nature of this call, we've heard all the rumors and I don't want to even bring them all up, but will you be sharing that with the community? I'm sure some of it will be sensitive as the investigation goes on, but do you have a timeline in the sense of what will be shared?
Thank you, Sarah, thank you for asking that question. I don't have a timeline. This may take a while. I can share with you that, because I want to put you at ease, that we've been working this since it happened in partnership with other agencies to include the FBI, and our evidence so far does not point to anyone, to a student, okay? But we're not going to rule that out. But what we're following right now is not student-based, okay? And that's all I can share at this point.
I just wanted to mention again, my training with active shooter girls is NPR and what I hear on the news. So I was bringing foreign exchange students, and this is not a common phenomenon around the world. What it is, so I don't know how to prepare the student, and it's entirely relying on you guys. And I hope that there's some attention on foreign exchange students who are not used to this sort of thing, who are not, maybe don't even understand the language of the language, depending on the time of year. As the school year goes on, gets much better. That's all. Just another group that could use a little extra training.
Yeah, we can have the counselors that help manage those students in the high school could help with that, I think.
And I also want to add that was part of the preparation of the staff this morning, in addition to the students being able to write down what they needed some help with, is for staff to also be aware of somebody who maybe was a little more off or a little more quiet or something, and then they have the opportunity to send they did, just so that somebody could quietly kind of check in with them as well. So we have some layers to train them.
One more thing, Brittany. This was a swatting incident and a hoax, but in this day and age, everyone knows what that hoax would do, and the response and the trauma to the community. So, as a single solitary community member, I would ask that this be prosecuted to the full extent of the law.
Yeah, I did talk to Todd about that. Yes, that is what happened. Yeah. And I do want to, I see several students in here, I do want to compliment them. The students were super respectful, even though they were scared. They followed all of my directions when they were going out of the building. They helped each other, they cared for each other. I mean, your students are top-notch people. Anyone else?
I'm not a public speaker, so bear with me.
Oh, you're good.
I want to show my appreciation to all the law enforcement. When people are running away, they're going, and I hear and I feel it very clearly that you guys are, and gals, all the officers would put their life for others. I also want to include the school staff because you guys are at the secondary. And coming from, I grew up in this community, born and raised here. I felt very loved and cared for by my community that day. I know that kids aren't supposed to have cell phones. My kid did. And I can't tell you how helpful that was for me to just be calm throughout the process. Because I saw his text, I knew he was not in middle school. So it was easier for me, and I know we all have different experiences. It was easier for me to remain calm in the chaos of all the people, all the officers. Yes, was a somewhat scary response. Rifles, but it wasn't. I felt safe with that. I feel like this is what we are trained to do. I felt we all have our own things that we're trying to do. I felt like everybody had their part in the bigger process. And getting to the point of if we knew what their drill was, I walked away thinking, the first of the year, we're going to sign all these things as parents. I'm on my third kid. I'm going to tell you, I didn't do it. Yeah. And I thought to myself, what if there's this information in there that I'm not getting it, so where's my
Yes, we send a lot of stuff your way. I think it's overwhelming sometimes the amount of stuff you guys get from schools, especially if you have people in multiple buildings. So I can see how you can miss something, but we will make a really concerted effort to make sure you have all the information about this, and and then we can have an additional meeting even this spring if you want to. If you don't want to wait till fall.
Thank you. I also want to reiterate as well, and received plenty of text messages, was really thankful for the communication. Glad that worked for me because I pulled over, crossed and read, did I good, did I stay, went home, so it's very knowing that you guys had that somebody in there. Connect with the Salem police officer recently, he does a job with autism, and he prepared ideas for backpacks that every patrol car can have in Salem for autism, that helps the officers respond to things. So I just you guys think of some officers as just an option for this process.
Thank you for that. That's good tip. You got one over here too. Couple.
I'm a student here at Silverton High School, and going through this was very scary, and it felt very real, and I didn't know what was going on at all until I got a text from my parents saying that there was a possible active shooter, and knowing that it really scared me, and my mom was trying to comfort me the whole way through this, and you know, like I had my classmates next to me crying, and I was in the library, so we have a relatively new librarian, and she didn't really know the process of what to do. She knew where to go, but she didn't know exactly what to do. And I'm thankful enough that I used to have my AG in there, so I knew exactly what to do, where to go, and I had been in practice in the library before, but now going in there, it's kind of, you know, brings back all the memories of being in there, and, you know, it's still scary going back there. And I don't know, like, I feel like having more information to the students, you know, sooner, like, you know, like how parents get parent view messages, I feel like student view would also be nice to get students' emails out to know what's going on and, you know, to stay calm and like, updates as well, you know.
Okay, we'll talk about that. You guys aren't supposed to be on your phone, so I could have somebody push that button, but I didn't know if you guys even have your phones with you. So let me work with the high school team, and I'm so sorry, and I felt the same way. I was scared too.
I know a lot of the students there, everyone in my area, these were on the phones texting.
Oh, they were? Okay.
I have friends from all over.
Yep, getting new before.
Okay, we'll work on that. When I got to middle school, I said, hey, if you haven't texted your parents and told them you're here and that you're all good, you probably should do that right now. Get your phones out. And so they eventually got their phones out. So, okay, we'll know next time that if there is a true emergency, you guys are on top of it, watching it too. Okay.
I'm also a student here, and I agree with her. It was probably one of the most terrifying things that I've ever gone through in my life. One thing that still sticks in my mind is me and my friends were talking, and she had told me, she said, well, when the lockdown happened, teachers were in the process of closing doors, but before one of the teachers could close the door, one of the kids tried to come into her classroom because, you know, it's protocol, pull your kids in. But the teacher had told the kid to go back to their class and shut the door and left the kid out in the hall. And I feel like if I was in that position, I would be frustrated and terrified. I mean, thinking about it, if there really was an active shooter, that kid could have possibly died because that teacher said, no, go back to your classroom. And I also almost went to the bathroom too, actually. I was on my way to go out to the bathroom. So thinking about that, if I could have been that kid trying to get into a classroom but the teacher told me no and shut the door, that would have been 10 times more terrifying.
Will you do me a favor when you come in tomorrow? Will you come talk to Miss Jorgensen about that so that she can fix that for you? So we'll refresh staff on that. Yeah, I'm really sorry about that.
And one more thing.
Yeah, no, you're good. You got the floor.
One thing that was very uncomfortable for me personally, and I know a lot of other kids too at the high school, was, of course, we walked out with our hands up. Kids were either falling or just generally terrified. We had probably close to 20 parents filming us, just filming us walking out of the high school, and that was the most humiliating thing. Like, I know at least for my class, we were like, why are they filming? Why are they filming other kids crying? This isn't even their own kids. This is other parents. And other parents are filming other kids crying, putting their hands up, terrified, walking out of high school. Like, that's a parent's first instinct, is let me film kids crying and terrified.
I'm so sorry. That's super disappointing to me because, in that type of situation, that should never happen, and I'm really sorry. That sucks. I I have no words for that. Except that, if you know somebody that did record that should be deleted. Yeah, and KJ'd like to speak to that.
That was one thing I forgot to mention earlier when I was talking is the phone situation. I may have to rely on our ESD team or maybe Chief Ingstrom. But the phones are in these situations are a very controversial situation. So when we this year started enforcing our phone policy of no phones during class, we had a lot of parents say that in case of an emergency, you weren't talking about, canceled dentist appointments, you were talking about Friday. And I get that, my kid needed to talk to his mom to make sure she was okay on Friday. He wasn't supposed to, sorry Mr. Davison, don't send him detention. But he needed to make sure I was okay, just like you needed to make sure your kids were okay. But there's also a lot of not good things that happen when kids have their phones. And I don't know, I don't know, can I turn it over? I will say a few things I know, and then you can tell me if I'm right or wrong. How about that? Some of the things that were shared with us today when we were talking about this is things such as the cell phone lines go down and then the people in charge can't get a hold of each other. That is the last thing we want to happen. The students film horrible things and post them on Snapchat. We don't want that to happen. People are videoing kids having emotional responses. Unfortunately, everybody wants to get famous on the internet, and they want to post these things, and they do it. I don't think they're doing anything. It's not bad. They're not doing it to be bad. They're doing it because they want to show their support, or they want people to, think about us and things like that. But you don't want to be on someone else's Facebook page crying. And so phones aren't always a good thing, but I can see why we want our kids to have them. I know kids who were texting family members saying, we're okay. It's a really good thing, but it's also not always good. Am I right?
We could definitely, we're gonna create some kind of messages that we can just copy and paste real quick and send to teachers. So we're gonna increase and improve our communication plan so that in your case there would be more communication to the actual teachers that were on lockdown. So if you implement a system like Raptor, it has a thing that pushes out to teachers. You can push messages out to them to their phones. So those are things we'll talk about. All of those systems are expensive, and so we have budget constraints still in the district. The safety is a priority, so we have to figure out how to fix it. Maybe we need write grants and do. That's what I did when I was in Winston. I wrote grants. So we have a board meeting in about 5 minutes, and we have a session here. I am going to leave, but I am going to leave KJ in charge. I do want to point out that we do have a QR code, and so all the great, really intense things you shared with us today, those would be really good and to take that survey. That would be really awesome, and I hope the kids will take it too. You can mark your student on there and take it. It's just what do we do well? What could we do better? Just so we don't lose track of it. So, you sharing your thoughts with us was really important tonight. But I think that putting it in here will make sure I don't lose it, right? So if you would take that survey for me, that would be great. And we'll leave you in Principal Jorgensen's capable hands and Mr. Ingstrom. And then we are off to the board meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Kim. Do we have other questions? And keep asking that. Thank you. Superintendent Coe. I should wait till she leaves the room, but if you keep asking questions, I don't have to go to the board meeting.
If you need the QR code, the screen's going to turn off, so if you need the QR code.
Yeah, Taylor needs to go to the board meeting, so if you need that QR code, we can also, we'll send out this link in messaging. And do you want to talk a little bit about anything? Yeah.
So hearing some of you, and I was hoping to catch people before they left, one of the things I do is train in standard response protocols, training admin, training students, training teachers, and I just wanted to get an idea is if you did a community training for lockdowns and secure and what the schools in your area are doing, how many would be interested in coming to that? Okay, good. So that might be something that we can start working on, and if we have enough interest, then something that we could be holding in your area. Cool, thank you.
Thank you for bringing that up. We are going to, because we do have people that need to leave, so if you have individual questions, you want to touch base with myself, Mr. Mulligan, our ESD team, our police officers, I would, we're around if you have questions. Otherwise, you guys have a great night. Thank you for coming. And I guess,
on the back table when you walk out the door, there are a bunch of resources, just some things to help. We use some of them today with students, but for conversations with your child around processing questions they may have, things that are both English, Spanish, and Russian available, but feel free to look through, grab what you need for you and your families.
thank you for your time. I guess I'm going to the board meeting now. Unless you have questions.